this is Susan Phelan with Utah Book Scene, and I've got Elana Johnson sitting here. Hello, Elana.
Hello, how are you?
I am fine. I love your blue streak.
Oh, thank you.
Is that one of those clip-ins?
Oh, it's a clip. Yep, it was purple yesterday.
Oh, so you change it by your outfit?
Right, that's right. Whenever I feel like that day.
How many different colors do you have?
I just have the two. I have the purplish one, and this one's really bright and electric. So
I actually love that. It's very cool looking.
I like it. It makes me feel like a rebel.
Ah, a rebel.
That's right.
And you are a rebel because you write dystopian.
That's right.
And that's kind of a rebel class. It's young adult dystopian. You've got Possession, Surrender, and the third one's coming out
June 4th.
June
it's called Abandon.
of 2013,
Yep.
and it's called Abandon.
Abandon.
Tell us about the main character in your series.
Okay, so it's kind of complicated. Possession has a different main character than Surrender and does. They're technically companion novels. So it's a series, and Possession starts with a 15-year-old girl named Violet. And she, in my world, it's a brainwashing world where they plug in and they get told what they're going to do their whole lives. Who they're going to marry, what jobs they're going to do, all those kinds of things. And she decides that she wants to make her own rules, and so she stops plugging in at night and she breaks all the rules. And so Possession is sort of it's a novel that explores what happens when you break the rules in the society. And she runs away with a boy, she gets put in prison and runs away with a boy who happens to be the leader of the resistance. And she finds out that she has a special ability to control others. And so the whole question of Possession is, will she control others or will she submit to being controlled?
Oh.
And so that book ends and Surrender starts, and it's narrated by a boy named Gunnar and a girl named Rain, and they actually live in the capital city of the association. So it's a companion novel, and you'll see Vi in Surrender, and you see the leader of the resistance, his name's Jag, in Surrender, and you see the person who helped Vi escape, his name's Zen, in Surrender, but they don't narrate the book.
Okay.
And so Rain is the director's daughter, and in Surrender, it's basically the story of the resistance, what they're doing to fight against the government. Mm-hmm. So I always think of a trilogy as this big progression, you know. The first book is basically sets up the world and who's in opposition to the world and what the world needs to be fixed. So that's what we see in Possession. And the second book is typically, we know what's wrong with our world and this is what we're doing to fix it. So you see a lot of insider movement and resistance action in Surrender. Then the third book is always the war, the resistance against the government. Mm-hmm. And so in the third book, Abandon, is actually narrated by Jag and Zen, who we see in Possession and we see in Surrender. But it's much more sequential, Abandon is, to Surrender. It's not as companion novelish as these two are, but it's still a companion technically because it's not the same narrator throughout the whole series. And so we follow Zen and Jag, who are both leaders in the resistance in very different ways as they attempt to overthrow their controlling government.
I find it fascinating in dystopians how, like you said, the control issue. She has the ability to control, and yet she has been controlled. There almost always seems to be this yin-yang thing going on with dystopians. And where do you find that balance? Where is that truth? Right. So I think exploring it is fascinating. So it's a young adult, and anybody who's liked the Hunger Games, Matched,
Divergent, The Giver, anything like that, they're gonna. It's the same genre. It has quite a strong teen voice in it, so that kind of sets it apart a little bit. Matched is so beautiful in its poetry and elegance, and Possession is just a little bit more teenish. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does.
She's a little snarky. They're a little snarky. They're snarkier than Matched, but it's the same dystopian worlds that you can fall in love with and get lost in and stuff.
Very cool. Now I wonder, what got you writing a dystopian?
You know, I read Scott Westerfeld's Uglies.
Yes.
And I started writing in 2007, and I wrote Possession in 2008. It was my third book, and I had just read Uglies, and the whole series was out by then, because I think his series was published a few years earlier. But I read Uglies, and I loved it, and I didn't know what dystopian was, but I thought, I want to write a book like that. Okay. And so I got on the internet, and I kind of Googled what genre Uglies was, and I came across the term dystopian. And I thought, yeah, that's what I want to write, is a dystopian novel, takes place in the future in another world. I like making up my own worlds. And so I basically just needed to come up with the government, the problem, because dystopians typically portray a government that looks really good on the surface, but that actually isn't really very good. And so I came up with brainwashing, and it seemed really natural for my girl to be against that, and that's kind of how I did that. So I read Uglies in late 2007, early 2008, and I wrote Possession that year. So
Elana, this is fascinating. I think there's going to be a ton of people that are interested in this because dystopian is a really enjoyable read for a lot of people.
Readers seem to like dystopians. You're right. That we see them on the bestseller lists, and so it's true. Readers seem to really enjoy dystopians.
So
I do.
If you have a teen who is just eating up things like the Uglies and Matched and the Hunger Games, and they say, what else can I find? This is a choice that you might want to look for. Possession, Surrender, and Abandon by Elana Johnson. So thank you for talking with us. This is Susan Phelan for Utah Book Scene. What are you reading?